Okay, continuing our series, knowing your audience. Now, typically there are two types of buyers within an organization, the business buyer and the technical buyer. Now, the business buyer is who you want to get in front of first, not the technical. Now, I understand that that's not always the case. Like the world is not perfect or ideal, but the business buyer is much more likely to give you the actual problems and goals that they're trying to solve and meet. The other thing to keep in mind is that the business buyer and the technical buyer are influenced by different things. The business buyer is the one who makes the ultimate decision. Now, they are typically influenced by the technical buyer, but the technical person doesn't have, in most organizations, the actual real power or access to money. They influence those who do, but they are also motivated by different things. Now, when it comes to the decision-making process, the technical buyer is typically much more likely to want to get a tick in every box, whereas the business buyer is more likely to be able to be convinced that you only need to get a tick in the box that actually matters and meets your goals and solves the problem that you're out to market for. So this is crucial to understand, and ideally your first meeting or meetings is with that business audience. Now, typically they don't care about the widgets, the size, the color, the shape, or any of that sort of thing. What they care about is knowing that you understand their pain, that you can relate, that you've got some form of connection and rapport, people skills, but also that you can demonstrate you have capability to solve that pain. Now, this is important because without that, why would they want to continue engaging with you? Now, the trick here is not to go into the speeds and feeds of whatever your product or solution is, but to show tangible results. And this is where case studies or customer testimonials and references are really powerful. I remember back in 2016, I was on a 7-week, 16-city, 3-country tour around Asia. And I spoke for 90 minutes about a particular product. Only about 10 minutes of that 90-minute presentation was product specific. The rest of it was about defining the various pains that those organizations in the audience were likely to be experiencing, showing the challenges that those pains then caused to prove that I knew what I was talking about. Then there was the product piece, very short, here's the product name, here's what it does, that's cool. And then straight into, here's how that product helps solve each of those problems and customer examples. Now, the feedback from the audience in each of those cities was amazing. Typically after that sort of event, like it's getting late, they want to go home, everyone hung around in every city. The feedback from marketing and from the sales teams were never before had they received so many warm leads and actual meeting requests from an event like this. Because most of the time, you're talking about yourself. Like, my product has this and it does that. You need to remember, it's not about you, it's about them. So this is why knowing the audience is so important. Understanding what it is that they're trying to achieve, right? So when you speak to a business person, they're going to care about business metrics. You need to convince them and get them to acknowledge that whatever pain it is that they're experiencing is real, but also that whatever solution that you're putting forward costs less than the problem that they're trying to solve. Like, if it ends up costing more, or the pain of solving it is greater than the pain of experiencing it, you're not going to win, right? The answer will be do nothing. But what they care about are things like internal rate of return, or IRR, or net present value, convincing them to take action and take action with you. Other financial metrics like total cost of ownership and return on investment are also important. But if you can craft a highly convincing and valid with their numbers argument that your solution adds up financially, you are so much further ahead than the flashy vendor who comes in with their pitch about, oh, my tractor can pull four tons more than the other guy. Well, if the customer doesn't need those extra 4 tons in pulling power, who cares, right? Remember, it's only a benefit. That feature is only a benefit if it solves a problem for them. Now, when you are talking to a technical audience, this is where you do need to go deeper, right? They are different levels of discussion. It's not that one is fluffy and one is real. Like that, you're just talking about different things. So when you're talking with a technical audience, this is where you would go into more of the detail around your tractor, or the property you're selling, or the software, or the services, or the hardware, or the tools, whatever it is that your organization sells. So this is where you would then do a much more detailed comparison around a widget or a shape or whatever. But again, putting it in terms that relate specifically to that customer's problem and the pain, right? You need to be careful here, because often technical people, they want to build a better mousetrap, they want to be a hero in their organization, or they're the see more, right? Tell me everything. I just want to keep seeing more. You need to make sure that you don't get led down the rabbit warren or on a wild goose chase and end up talking about things that don't actually help you progress the conversation or the sales process, that don't help you solve their pain and thus win the deal, right? This is where technical people, through no fault of their own, they're inquisitive, right? They want to know how things work. So you need to be very disciplined when speaking with a technical person around what exactly it is you're going to show them and why. And don't get caught in the trap of showing something that might not necessarily be fully baked, or introduces some other questions that are not relevant to the pain that the customer is experiencing. So be very clear around what it is you're there to discuss, both with the business person and with the technical person. And a great way to frame this, like, you obviously, whenever you go into any meeting, you have a goal, you've got a plan, and you know what it is you want to achieve. Now, the very best salespeople don't go in there and tell them that. They get the customer or the prospect to say it back to you. But you still control things. So, for example, what is it that you're hoping to get out of today's conversation? What would success look like for you? For us to progress, like what would make it worth your while? These are the questions that you want to know, and are great for helping qualify, and they're valid for both the business and the technical audience. But they're a way in which you can use positioning to make it their idea, their decision, because you want to retain control of the process. The person who asks the questions is in control, but you need to do it in such a way that they feel that it's their idea, that it's their decision, that they feel they're in control, even though you are the one that's guiding this whole process, right? So, knowing your audience is crucially and critically important. The conversations that you have are different. They're not more or less valid than the other, but they're different. And so, when you are in a sales situation or a buying situation, you typically have different roles in your organization, in your field teams. Often, and not always, but there is some form of sales rep or an account manager or a sales executive. They should be able to clearly articulate the business benefits of whatever it is you're selling and the solution as it relates to the pains that you know that customers in that industry feel. And the rep should be able to have that conversation. It is not a technical conversation. It's a business conversation. Your technical sales resource, now they might be a specialist, they might be a pre-sales person, they may be, an engineer, like depending on what industry you're in. If you're selling tractors, maybe it's an engineer or a mechanic. If you're selling real estate, maybe you're a mortgage broking specialist or an actuator. So if you're in software, it might be a pre-sales technical resource. So different conversations for different audiences should be led by the appropriate field resource that you have. So I hope this helps just frame that understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve and get the best out of those meetings so that you can divide and conquer. And it gives you more flexibility to play, good cop, bad cop, or be able to say, look, I don't know the answer to that, I'll come back to you, or look, you know what, that's a great question. Why don't we organise a time, I'll get my specialist to come in, we'll get your technical people around the table, and that way, not only do you not get sidetracked, but you're not evading the question from the customer, you're offering a solution, but you get that next meeting. And again, like all meetings, you want to have a plan, but make them think that it's theirs and speak their language. So thank you.